You are in the middle of something on Telegram, sending a batch of messages, running a bot, adding a few groups, and suddenly everything just stops. The app or the script throws back a message that says a flood wait is required and gives you a number of seconds you have to sit and wait. Your first instinct is that something is wrong, that your account is in trouble, that you have been banned. Almost always, that is not what happened. A flood wait is Telegram telling you to slow down, and once you understand what it really is, it goes from a scary red error into a routine speed bump you can plan around. So let me walk through what a flood wait really is, why it happens, and how to structure your activity so you almost never hit it. I run managed Telegram hosting on dedicated hardware here in Singapore, and flood waits are something I deal with as a normal part of the job, because keeping a lot of accounts and bots healthy at once means pacing their activity so they never trip the rate limits. So this is not theory. It is the practical reality of what the limit is, how it behaves, and the habits that keep it out of your way. By the end, you will read a flood wait for what it is, a timer, and know how to keep your activity under the line instead of slamming into it. Here is the plan. What a flood wait actually is, and why it is a speed limit rather than a punishment. The difference between a flood wait and the real limit on your account, so you do not confuse the two and overreact. What kinds of activity trigger one? The single biggest mistake people make when they see one, which is fighting it and making it worse. And finally, the concrete way to pace activity, for both a person and a bot, so flood waits become rare and short. Start with what a flood wait actually is. Telegram, like every large service, has a rate limiter sitting in front of its API, watching how fast each account sends requests. When you send actions faster than the server is willing to accept, it does not just drop them silently. It answers with a flood wait, which is simply a response that says, "You are going too fast. Wait this many seconds before trying again." The number it gives you is the cooldown. It is a temporary break on your activity, and when the seconds pass, you are free to continue. That is the entire mechanic. It is a timer, not a verdict. Now the distinction that saves people a lot of panic, which is the difference between a flood wait and the real limit on your account. A flood wait is short-lived and self-clearing. It lasts the number of seconds it names, sometimes a handful, sometimes a few minutes, and then it is gone with no lasting mark. An account limit, the kind where Telegram restricts what your account can do because it looked like spam, is a different animal entirely, longer, heavier, and tied to your behavior over time. Confusing the two leads people to overreact to a flood wait as if their account is dying, when really it just asks them to wait a minute. Read the message. If it names a number of seconds, it is a flood wait and the fix is patience. Understand why Telegram does this, because it makes the whole thing feel less personal. The rate limit is defensive infrastructure. Telegram serves an enormous number of people, and if any single account could fire unlimited actions as fast as it wanted, a handful of aggressive clients could degrade the service for everyone. So the limiter applies to all of us, evenly as a fairness and stability measure. It is the same reason every serious AP on the internet throttles requests. A flood wait is not Telegram singling you out. It is the ordinary pushback of a shared system protecting itself. Now what actually triggers one? Because the pattern is consistent. Flood waits come from volume and speed together. Too many actions in too short a window. Sending a rapid burst of messages, joining many groups or channels one after another, adding a long list of contacts quickly, resolving a lot of usernames back to back, or pulling large amounts of history at full tilt. These are the classic triggers. It is rarely any single action that trips it. It is the burst, the machine gun pace. The server watches the rate, and when your rate spikes, the brake comes down. So the mental model is simple. Steady is fine, bursts are what get caught. Here is the single biggest mistake people make, and it is the one that turns a short wait into a long ordeal. When they get a flood wait of say 30 seconds, they immediately retry and retry again, hammering the server while it is still telling them to wait. Every one of those premature retries is another request arriving too soon, and the limiter responds by extending the wait, sometimes dramatically. So the person who impatiently keeps trying ends up locked out far longer than the one who simply waited the 30 seconds it originally asked for. Fighting a flood wait feeds it. The wait is not a suggestion to keep knocking, it is an instruction to stop until the timer runs out, which leads directly to the correct behavior, and it could not be simpler. When Telegram hands you a flood wait with a number, you respect that number exactly. You wait at least that many seconds, ideally with a small margin on top, and only then continue. The server told you precisely how long the cooldown is, so use it. Sleep for the duration, do nothing in the meantime, and resume cleanly when it expires. Do that and the flood wait costs you exactly the seconds it named and nothing more. Ignore it and you pay many times over. The whole discipline of living with rate limits is really just this one habit. Honor the number. Now the specifics of staying under the line in the first place, starting with pacing. The way to avoid flood waits is to never approach the rate that triggers them, and the way to do that is to space your actions out instead of firing them in bursts. Put a small deliberate delay between actions, keep a steady rhythm rather than a spike, and you give the limiter nothing to react to. A person doing this naturally just does not rush, does not mass anything all at once. The goal is a calm, even pace that looks nothing like a burst, because it is the burst, not the raw total, that the limiter is most sensitive to, that applies double to any kind of bulk work. If you genuinely need to do a lot of something, joining a number of channels, sending updates across many chats, working through a big list, the answer is never to do it all in one tight burst. Spread it out over time, in small groups with gaps between them, so the overall pace stays gentle even though the total volume is large. 100 actions dribbled out over an hour is invisible to the limiter, while the same 100 fired in 10 seconds is a guaranteed flood wait. Volume is not really the enemy, density is. There is an important wrinkle with new accounts, which is that they hit these limits harder and sooner, and it ties into the trust of the account and the IP underneath it. A brand new account has no track record, so Telegram is more conservative with it, and the tolerances are tighter, while an established account on a stable IP that matches its identity earns more headroom. So the worst thing you can do is take a fresh account on a shifting or suspicious connection and immediately push a lot of activity through it fast. That combination, no history plus a jumpy footprint plus a burst, is exactly what the system is most cautious about. So a solid, settled foundation quietly buys you tolerance. For anyone running a bot or any automation, the single most important thing is to build the wait handling directly into the code. When your program receives a flood wait for some number of seconds, it should catch that, sleep for that many seconds plus a small buffer, and only then retry. Never write a loop that just retries on failure without sleeping, because against a flood wait that loop becomes a hammer that extends the block indefinitely. Better still, throttle yourself proactively, queuing outgoing actions and releasing them at a steady rate that stays comfortably below the limit, so the wait handling becomes a rare safety net rather than a daily event. If you are running multiple accounts, remember that each one has its own limits, and that pulling them behind a single hammering connection is asking for trouble. Do not run a stack of accounts all firing at once from the same place, all pushing hard simultaneously, because that concentrates exactly the kind of dense bursty pattern the system reacts to. Give each account its own steady separated pace, its own clean connection, and its own breathing room. Treated individually and calmly, a set of accounts stays healthy. Treated as one big fire hose, they draw attention and limits together. Let me be clear about a couple of things not to do, because people reach for them and they backfire. Do not try to dodge a flood wait by switching your IP mid-wait or spinning up a new session to get around the timer, because that reads as evasion and does nothing good for how the account is judged over time. And do not treat a flood wait as a reason to panic and change everything about the setup. The wait is mundane. The right response is almost always to do less and wait, not to do more and maneuver. Put the whole thing together as a simple routine. Pace your actions with small delays instead of firing bursts, and spread any bulk work thinly across time. Respect every flood wait exactly, waiting the number of seconds it names before doing anything else. Build proper backoff and self-throttling into any bot. Keep new accounts especially gentle until they settle, and keep every account on a stable, clean connection so it has trust to spend. Do those, and flood waits fade from a constant frustration into a rare, brief, and completely manageable event. I will be clear about scope, because it matters. Everything here is about running your own legitimate activities smoothly and respectfully within Telegram's limits, keeping a bot online or an account healthy without slamming into the rate limiter. It is not about blasting out mass unsolicited messages or trying to overwhelm the system, which is exactly the abuse the limits exist to stop, and which no amount of clever pacing makes acceptable. The honest use, an ordinary operator keeping steady, well-behaved activity under the line, is the use this advice serves. And here is the honest catch. Keeping activity paced, back-off wired into every bot, accounts warm, and each one on a stable, clean, identity-matched IP is steady, fiddly, ongoing work, and it gets harder the more accounts and automation you are keeping alive at once. That constant pacing and foundation work, the unglamorous part that decides whether you live under the limits or keep smashing into them, is exactly what managed hosting is built to carry. Telegram Vault is managed Telegram hosting on dedicated Singapore hardware, real handsets on real carrier SIMs from Singtel, M1, StarHub, and Vivify. So your accounts run on a stable, clean mobile IP with the kind of settled footprint that earns headroom, while the pacing and the foundation underneath are handled for you. If that is what you need, start at telegramvault.org. Onboarding begins with a real conversation about your setup, not a checkout page, and the code TGYT gets you a discount when you start. If this turns floodweights from a mystery into something you can plan around, subscribe, because there is a lot more on running Telegram accounts and bots cleanly coming on this channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.